Ben Crump, happy to have you, my man.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be with you.
What makes a group of teenagers pull away from an island without the friend they arrived with? What makes a mother dial her son's number over and over and hear nothing come back? And what happens to a family when the one device that could answer those questions comes home before the child does? Ben Crump sat down for an interview about the death of Nolan Wells, and in that conversation he laid out the exact details that have kept this case alive. We have that interview. We also have the recording of the call placed from the water that afternoon. Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk you through both, in the order they happened, without the guesswork circulating everywhere else. If you want the full record rather than the fragments, subscribe to True Crime Victims and hit the like button, because this is where it gets laid out properly. Crump begins with a contradiction.
Ben Crump, happy to have you, my man.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be with you.
Man, it's a pleasure having you. I mean, it's so much I want to ask you. It's so much I want to get into. I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take up that much of your time. Nolan Wells, for the people that's unfamiliar with that case, can you break that down?
Certainly. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old black teenager who, on 4th of July, was celebrating with his friends, and he went out on Horn Island. He went with his 3 other friends, at least what we have in the photograph, and they were young white teenagers. He was the only black teenager, and somehow they all came back home safely on the 4th of July, but Nolan Wells did not come home. His mother, their families announced that he was missing. They were, out of their mind with concern. And then his body was found washed up on shore 2 days later, face down, dead. And so then everybody started to try to say, well, what happened? When you look at the videos, there were 300, 400 people out there. And what we've been saying, somebody knows something, somebody saw something. There was a young lady named Katie who said that, she was talking to Nolan, but then he got back on the boat with the people he came with, or got back on the boat with the boys. And the boys who were on the boat with him said, Nolan said he was going to stay behind with Katie, and that he was not going to go back with them. One of the things that has been bewildering is the fact that if he says he's going to stay behind, why doesn't an 18-year-old get their cell phone? If they're not going to go with the boat, why would they leave it with them? His mother, called his phone 3 times, got no answer after they started getting concerned. And it was when they did the Life 360, trying to say, find my phone, is when she found out that the phone was with the friends. And so her friend went to get the phone. And when they got the phone back, they discovered that there were a lot of Snapchat messages that were deleted. They also found that there were some texts deleted. So that was very concerning to them as they're trying to figure out, what happened to my child? Our child is dead and we have no answers. Nobody's telling us anything. And so it became just an incredibly painful ordeal for them, trying to find out what happened to Nolan Wells. And then America became engaged in this matter because it wasn't adding up to anybody. He says, I'm going to stay behind, but he leaves his cell phone. He doesn't have his car keys. Well, if he's staying behind, and you don't have any of that information, people are saying, did he stay behind? And so that becomes a question. And, you know, obviously there's this CETO audio that comes out that people have did forensic audio engineering on it to try to see what was being said on the audio recording of the CETO counter 911 type call. And it's in that call that people say they hear certain things. We have retained audio engineering experts to be able to decipher and to render expert opinions on the validity of the CETO 911 audio that seems to suggest things about the presence of Nolan. And so we are trying not to speculate. We're trying to investigate, but we are asking questions that don't add up to us. And that's what everybody's been doing, because everybody says, how can this 18-year-old college football player who's in tip-top shape just go missing and nobody knows anything? Nobody's seen anything. And the sheriff within, hours after he was discovered, his dead body, they claimed that, that no foul play, accidental drowning is what they suggest. And his family are saying, we can't accept that when you make that conclusion without doing no investigations. And so what they want is a full, impartial, fair investigation into what happened to Nolan Wells. In our community, we see people investigate it very zealously. And so we want the same thing for our children. We want them to zealously investigate this matter, just as if they would if the roles were reversed. And that's what I think has people in the minority community saying, hold on, we want to know what's on everybody's phone. We want to know social media, because all of that could become very relevant information as to what happened to Nolan Wells.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the woman that Nolan was hanging out with when he was at the island, Katie, her sister, Gracie, came out and said that Nolan intended to go back to the mainland with his friends, right?
Yeah, there seems to be a conflict in what they're saying. They said he stayed with the young lady. The young lady said, no, he got back on the boat. And so, that seems to be one of the biggest issues that everybody is trying to figure out, as well as the independent autopsy where he had red discoloration at the back of his brain that was found in the second autopsy, and also the fact that the initial state medical examiner kept possession of Nolan Wells' throat, and we don't know why they did that. Our pathologist, Dr. Roger Mitchell, said when he was the chief medical examiner for the city of Washington, D.C., that they normally would do that it wasn't uncommon if they suspected that there might be some fracture or some compressions to the throat.
So after y'all did the autopsy, from what you know, what do you believe that was on the back of his neck?
We can't speculate. We know that we think Dr. Roger Mitchell should have the benefit of looking at all the autopsy notes and observations and photographs from the first autopsy, and then have, the state medical examiner be able to look at all of his notes from the second autopsy and try to work together to figure out what conclusions that they can draw from the autopsies, both of them. And then also waiting for toxicology. That becomes a factor in finding out the manner and cause of death. But Dr. Mitchell said, and this is a very, very important, he said, if it's a drowning, then that still doesn't answer the whole question of what happened to Nolan Wells, because he said then there are questions about, was Nolan Wells' condition of his body conscious or unconscious when he went into the water? Furthermore, he said, did he go into the water unforced or forced? He said all those things become factors.
Makes a lot of sense. And I know his friend Warren Hudson, he came out with an interview where he made a statement about how Nolan, he was drinking liquor on the boat. You heard about that?
Well, we don't know. We want the toxicology to come. We know when you hear the CETO audio call, it appears that there was some intoxication. But again, toxicology can tell us that. And people's firsthand eyewitness testimony can tell us that. We want answers. You know, as I've said over and over again, I am for truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. I am for justice, no matter who it convicts or who it acquits. And I am certainly for transparency, so all of us can see and we can have trust in the system that this was a fair, impartial, and complete investigation. That's what everybody would want if this was their child.
Judge Mathis, happy to have you back, my man. So much I want to get into. Had to bring you back on to follow up on this Nolan Wells case, man.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. So much to get into. I don't want to waste no time. I want to get right into it. How you feel about this second autopsy that was done on Nolan Wells?
Yes, I think when we last spoke, we were awaiting the forensic autopsy because the original autopsy performed by the county examiner, we just weren't convinced it would be independent, quite frankly, because we weren't getting enough information from law enforcement. And so the forensic autopsy came back. And lo and behold, even though they're trying to downplay it, and I understand Ben Crump and NAACP and others don't want to try and jump to conclusion or step too far out, but the forensic autopsy showed that there was what they call discoloration. No, I call them bruises in the back of the head, appearing that someone has had their hand pressed at the back of their head, at the back of Nolan's head. That's concerning to me. And so hopefully we'll get some more insight on that. I'm not sure. It seems like there's another opportunity for them to investigate something physiological. I'm just not sure because as far as I knew, the forensic autopsy is as far as you go, but we'll see. But yeah, that's what causes new concern. And then you've had different stories coming out from the teenagers. One of the young men himself spoke out about it, claiming they had begged Nolan to get on the boat, and that he wouldn't. Then there's the woman that he's supposed to have stayed back with, I think her name Katie or something. Well, he was supposed to have stayed back with Katie. That was their story. However, Katie's friend says that she saw him only in passing on the island, didn't stay with him, and Katie isn't saying anything at all. So it's a lot of moving parts here, and I'm just hoping it's not one of those, quite frankly, and if his friends didn't have anything to do with it and they truly left him behind, etc., etc., he has discoloration, bruises on the back of his neck. Something happened. And quite frankly, this is Mississippi, where in 1954, 5, which sparked the civil rights movement, Emmett Till was killed for so-called whistling at a white woman. And now we're hearing Nolan Wells stayed back to be with a white woman, and he turns up dead with bruises behind his neck. That's the context I'm putting this in. It's Emmett Till, perhaps, all over.
Wow, so you feel like the dynamics between Nolan Wells and Emmett Till is similar?
Well, the dynamics are the same. He's with a white woman, or allegedly said something with, or however you view it, with a white woman, and there's a suspicion that white men killed him. And that was the case with Emmett Till. He so-called whistled as a kid. 13 was he? Whistled so-called the woman at the store. White woman says he whistled at her. What happened? White men killed him. And that's why I'm making that analogy. But it could altogether be untrue. But I'm making the analogy as a possibility. And that is the case of my thought processes.
So it was actually bruises behind his neck.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, what else? Why is it only there in the back of your neck, which is coincidentally how you drown somebody? You put their head in the back of the neck and not let them up, and they try and push up, but you got their head down, so the head bruises in the back of the neck because somebody tried to hold it down or did hold it down. I'm only presenting the facts, and I only made the analogy to Emmett Till because it's the same optics. However, do I know whether it's the same? Do I know any of the factors that I'm suggesting is accurate? No, but I am making observations about the facts as I see them. And then I am, yes, speculating. And quite frankly, in the law, you're not supposed to speculate. You're supposed to have hard facts. But in this case, since nobody's given us any hard facts, we can't get into the information that we need, then yes, we're left to only speculate.
His organs was missing during his autopsy, right?
Yeah, and they allege now that that's standard. I'm not sure about that, so I can't tell you. I don't know about autopsies in that sense. But they said one of his lungs and then parts of his throat, and I read that that's typical, but I just don't know. And I'm not one to try and find something that is not there. I mean, we have enough that's there that we don't have to go looking too further. Did they take the organs out? Did they do whatever with the throat? Well, that's down the line. What we do know, because we don't know why and results and what that process is. Are they taking tissues from those organs and analyzing them for further evidence or insights, etc.? We don't know. What we do know is that he left and drowned, and his buddies are not speaking, and the one that just spoke about it acted as if they pressured him to leave, and he wouldn't. However, they left his phone. They have that. They don't present it to his mother as a average person would. Time I get back, he didn't come with us. He left his phone. I'm calling your parents. And I understand that they didn't even call him immediately after finding out that he had been drowned or that he had drowned. So that's certainly the time that you call and say, hey, I see he's drowned. I have his phone. No, they waited. And in fact, some of the information had been deleted from that phone that had been there. And put all those things together and the discoloration on the neck, and I'm convinced that someone did something wrong. Yes, I am.
If it was bruises behind his neck, yeah, that needs to be looked into. It sounds like he got into an altercation.
And they allege that there's video of him getting into an altercation. I'm not sure if I've seen it or not. I've been paying close attention, but either I've heard or seen that he was involved in an altercation there. And who knows what that altercation is about once again. See, brothers, young black boys being raised in upper income white communities, nearly exclusively white, 95%. In many instances, your friends don't feel about you as you may feel about them. There is a racial barrier that exists and will always exist. And your realities are always going to be different. And you're always going to be looked at by your white friends differently. And so to that extent, he may not have understood that to be the case. He may have had trust for those he shouldn't have. He may have had a particular mindset that wasn't quite as rational as it should be when you're growing up in that environment. Sometimes you're irrational and you think you can do the same things they do and get away with it. No, you can't. Your black behind will go to jail and they'll go to counseling.
Yeah, the friend you referring to is Warren Hudson. He did an interview where he made a comment about how Nolan, he was drinking alcohol on the boat.
Well, they all were. Who are they kidding? They all were. I bet it was, even if they had a 12-year-old on the island, he was drinking. So no, yes, so was he. So was everybody. So did everybody drown with bruises on the back of their neck? Did all the people drinking drown with bruises on the back of their neck? How is that relevant then? Unless he fell off, then you got dozens of witnesses seeing him fall off of a boat that is near the dock because he wasn't on another boat. He stayed behind on the island, perhaps in the dock area. So what's the relevance of him drinking? He didn't get drunk and fall off in the ocean. We do know that. In someone else's boat. So that's no relevance. That's just like saying George Floyd was high. And so therefore they had a right to execute him. And so we're saying now, oh, well, Nolan had been drinking. That doesn't give you a right to execute him. When I say execute him, I mean kill, of course.
Yeah, his friend doubled down that Nolan wanted to stay. He also said that it was common for people to leave their phones on the boat for it won't get water damage.
No, not either. You know, no teenager in the world, they would risk the salt. What is him? Salt water if you drop it? If you drop your phone in any water, you can drop it while you're on the dock. Drop it while you're in the boat. Drop it. So you can drop it in any place in the area of salt water. And so no, everybody, all those young people, it is not common. That's a lie. It is not common, and I have no facts to verify it other than common sense. And I don't believe that a lot of those teenagers actually leave their phones somewhere unattended for hours. That's what he would be suggesting. Because if you come there, you're not coming to the island for 10 minutes. You're coming to hang and party. And you're going to put your phone somewhere? You think, I don't believe young people can go an hour without their phone. I don't believe teenagers can go an hour without their phone without start shaking.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because it still don't make sense to me. Because they never told Nolan mom that they had the phone. She had to use an app to find out. So
correct. Yeah, they had it and didn't turn it in. The only way they found it, as you just said, his mother had to use an app to find the phone, as opposed to them saying, oh, we have Nolan's phone. And the news comes on. Oh, Nolan is missing. Let's call his mom immediately. We don't have her number. Walk to the house. We didn't know the address. Oh, so he really wasn't your friend. Now we're getting closer to the truth. You don't even know where he lived. My sons, we did a version of our show today, the Mathis Family Tables, a YouTube show and podcast. And one of the things we discussed is, what are real friends? What does real friendship mean? And it was in the context of the Nolan Wells case. And it was easy for me. It means trust / loyalty, and then being able to identify with you. And in many instances, that's why my family says, well, you don't have any friends out here in LA. I don't want no friends in LA. I can't identify with them, nor do I trust them. And in fact, if I trust you and love you, you can cross me. I'm going to put you on time out for a minute, but I'm going to re-embrace you out of love. Now, if you did something to me to hurt me, then I'm going to go nuclear on you. But if you did something to help yourself, but not hurt me, I might give you a pass if you're a loved one. But if your objective was to hurt me, I got to hurt you 10 times over. So I say that to say, were they his real friends? Should he have trusted them? Should he have been loyal to them? Should he have believed they would never do anything to harm him, that they would only look out for his best interests? Probably not. He probably didn't know him that well enough to put that type of trust and faith in them.
Yeah, he also said that he told the United States Coast Guard and Nolan's mom that he was missing.
You call the Coast Guard, and you don't call his mother first. You call the Coast Guard. I mean, these are teenagers. This isn't like these are middle-aged people who, yes, you are a responsible enough person. Okay, I'll call the Coast Guard, and I know how they operate, and I know how to communicate with them, and I know the questions they're going to ask, and I know the answers to give. No, you are a teenager. You need an adult to handle those situations, and you need a trusted adult that you go to. You go to either your own parent, you call. You say, Mama, my man is missing. Nolan is missing. What do we do? And they say, call 911 and have you call his parents. Maybe he called them. Well, no, we have his phone. Oh, he left his phone? Yeah, he left his phone. Why did he leave his phone? That's what would have happened. Would you call the Coast Guard if you're a teenager and your man ends up missing? Would you call the Coast Guard first? Or would you call your parents and say, what do I do? Or call his parent and say, what do I do? You're a teenager. You're calling somebody close and informed. Somebody close that you can trust and is informed and that's close to him as well. And they didn't do that. Instead, as you say, they called the Coast Guard and told them what? How did they know? How long was he missing? Had they found the body? What'd you call the Coast Guard for? What'd you call the Coast Guard for? He told you he was going to be left behind. Did he have a curfew? Did he tell you he was going to be this amount of time? Why is it that you felt the need to call the Coast Guard at any point before he had been found drowned? There was no need. My man partied. Oh, he must have spent the night with her. Oh, man, Nolan getting it in. Shit, we might not see Nolan for a couple of days. Such and such and such and such. Nah, that's how you feel. If you trusted everything is all right with your man, it's only if you think something is wrong that you determine you need to call the authorities.
Great point. That's a real good point. Because even if he did say that he was going to stay, why would you panic and report that he's missing? Even if he is a little late, that just could have been both of them vibing out and hanging out more than expected.
Late what? Late what? Late from what? They don't know when he's coming back. He didn't tell them I'm going to be back at such and such time. He said, I'm staying. They claim that he said, I'm staying back with this woman. If you stand back with a woman, come on now, a teenager, you ain't giving your boys when you're going to get back. You're going to say, I'll see you when I see you. Hopefully it's tomorrow afternoon. After we do what we do. That's the mindset of a teenager staying behind and his boys going forward, knowing that their boy has been staying behind with his woman. But once again, the woman they claim he stayed with, her sister or best friend, said they only saw Nolan in passing on the island, not stayed with him.
Did you hear about how Warren Hudson, his stepmom, is a judge? And I think she came out with a statement and she doubled down that, Nolan, he chose to stay behind at the island.
Correct. And I guess it's just as, that's why it gives me such leniency to discuss what I believe to be the case. If another judge who was his mother and certainly biased had the tenacity to issue a press release confirming her beliefs in what her son said, which is bias in and of itself. Not one time have I ever accepted as evidence or solid testimony when someone tells me, well, I went over it with my mother and she can tell you. I got a letter from my mother. I got some evidence from my mother. Yeah, I know your mother. I got some evidence from my wife. Yeah, I know your wife gonna tell you what you want me. You're gonna tell me what your wife want me to tell you. Yeah, I know you do. But it's totally discounted because of the bias that is innate in their relationship. So, mother, you're a judge, you're a lawyer, whatever. The innate part of that is that they have a mother-son bond, and nothing penetrates that, not even the law. Some of us might have seen this series called Your Honor, where the sitting judge, his son killed someone accidentally, and that sitting judge harbored his son, protected his son, even breaking the law himself to do it. So certainly, just because his mother's a judge and sticks up for him doesn't make any difference than if she was a sister in the hood with 8 kids trying to make it on her own. Same difference. Mother-son bond. That's it. That's the only credibility I give to her letter. I think I should get a little more credibility. I don't know anybody in it.
Yeah, she got a lot of backlash. A lot of people was accusing her of using her position to defend her stepson. So, yeah, she got a lot of backlash. But it does make you think, do she know more than everybody else? I mean, I'm sure he giving her more information than we all know, so.
Now, I just think it's a mother-son bond, and I wouldn't think that she would. Then again, the show I'm talking about, Your Honor, he was conspiring with his son to keep him out of trouble. So there's been, and we say sometimes, does art follow culture, or does art follow society, or does society follow art? So in the case of art, we had a show where a judge whose son committed murder, he conspired with his son to protect him from murder. Well, in real life, we have here a judge who has issued a statement on behalf of her son, who was being discussed regarding the disappearance of someone. And so, yeah, I can't speak too fast about what a judge would do with regard to conspiring to protect a criminal act of their child. Would I do it? Yeah, I guess we're really getting down to those issues of the heart. to be quite frank. Not issues of your profession, issues of the heart. Because I could think of a circumstance or two that I would defend my son had he been wrong. So that's why I give it no credibility. But go ahead.
So the woman that Nolan was talking to, her name was Katie, and her sister Gracie came out and said that Nolan, he actually intended to go back to the mainland with his group.
And didn't she say they hadn't spent a lot of time together while they were there? He didn't stay back specifically to spend a lot of time with her, or they didn't spend a lot of time together, Katie and Nolan.
She definitely said that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of defeats the whole explanation that he insisted. We just kept, get on the boat. Come on, Nolan. You got to get on the boat. And he doesn't. And that, as it turns out, there's no sense of desperation for him to stay off the boat because he has nothing really cooking, if you will, at the moment, to be so insistent at being left behind without a ride back.
Yeah, the stories are conflicting. You got Nolan friends saying that he wanted to stay at the island, but you got Katie's sister Gracie saying that Nolan, he intended to go back with his group. So
yeah, a lot of moving parts, and I'm waiting to see about this grand jury and see what they say, because it's based on how the prosecutor presents that case to the grand jury. Grand jury hearings are one way. You don't have those who testify at the grand jury do not have the ability to have legal counsel. They are questioned by the prosecutor in front of the grand jury with the questions and the objectives that the prosecutor is trying to achieve. No defense attorney can say objection, or they can say, let me tell you an alternative scenario or narrative. That doesn't occur. So I don't like grand jury in and of itself. I think grand juries should be abolished. But in the case of, in this case, we have to trust that the prosecutor wants to be fair and not protecting, as has been the case in the history of Mississippi over the decades. Protect those who have been accused of racial hostility and racial killings. And so that's what we hope we're not seeing, a cover up. That's the best way to put it. And so we'll see what's presented in front of the grand jury and how they respond. And on that note, when we talk about this, you know, everybody tells us to vote for this president, that president, this U.S. senator, As street guys, and I say as because I still identify right where I came from. I'm everything other than a criminal. I'm still the same other than a criminal. But my point is, we complain about voting. Yeah, the hell with a president, a U.S. Senate. You know who street guys need to be concerned with? Prosecutors and judges. That's why you vote. So you can you learn who's running for prosecutor. And you look at their record. You learn who's running for police chief or other law enforcement positions that are based on elections. The judge. And determine whether you're going to vote for that person or not. But you got to get out and vote or stop complaining. You see how they railroading us? They send us to jail on trumped up charges, don't get due process, plant stuff on us, shoot us and lie about it like they just did the young man Reese in Madison, Wisconsin. We got to vote for prosecutors. In fact, what we did after the killing of Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, we had an election that I was there, I say we because I was part of that movement, and we worked on electing a new prosecutor and a new mayor. Well, we didn't get the mayor, but we got 2 black council persons on, and we got a new prosecutor. And so that's the power of the vote. And that's what I encourage our brothers to do, because it's not going to stop. It doesn't appear that it's going to stop anytime before white supremacy ends. And I give that another 50 to 100 years, unfortunately, about 3 or 4 more generations.
Definitely. And I know that the autopsy, it didn't reveal if he was conscious or not when he got in the water. And I know Ben Crump and his team, they trying to figure that out. Was he conscious or not when he got in the water? So.
Yeah, and I wouldn't know scientifically whether they could, but we do know he had a discoloration, as they call it, bruises on the back of his neck, or a red bruise. That we do know that, or red discoloration, which reflects fresh bruises. And if you've been in the water, preserved by water, your tissues, then certainly you'll still be able to see that. It'll still be red.
Yeah, and I know it's also being reported that the autopsy reports done by the state is not being released.
And that's what's scary about the grand jury, because if you don't want us to see it, and you have a reason for that, okay, if your reason is you don't want to jump to conclusions too soon and ruin folks' lives and cause inflammatory in the community to be inflamed, etc. So let's be very careful and not let much out until we really know what the deal is. Okay, maybe so. On the other hand, let's not let too much out, because then they won't get a fair chance at a hearing. All kind of rational ways to protect the guilty.
It's an enhanced audio that's going viral right now by Nolan's friend that I want you to check out. Check your phone right quick. I want to get your take on it.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
What'd you say? Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down.
That I did not know that existed. And if this is authentic radio transmission between the dispatcher and the caller, then certainly this turns it on its head. They're observing him injured, asking if he's dead. Whoever on that call, with the technology we have now, and with interviews amongst the folks who were there, or the phone that the emergency call came from, the dispatcher has that number. Someone can get it. Then you'll go to the person who made the call and say, what did you see? This is real easy if that is the case. So we'll see what they do with this evidence. The fact that there's some audio from the dispatcher where the person calling asks, or in the background, one or the other, asks, oh my God, is he dead? So that's a whole new level of evidence that I'm interested in seeing where they go with that. And perhaps that's what the prosecutor may have all of this information and say, we're not sharing it because we don't want to bias. We don't want to create bias, et cetera, in the case, because in the media, have it, and she may have that. She may have that and take it right to the grand jury. That's what I'm hoping, if they don't disclose it to the widespread media this week.
Yeah, I don't know how you can justify that audio.
Can't. Not with someone in the background saying, is he dead? Even if you were calling to say there was a fight, it sounds like you're looking at something that has already happened, and you witnessed what happened, and you're saying, did he die from what I just saw? That's what you're saying? Oh, is he dead? Well, what? Somebody walked you from around the park and said, hey, or around the other boat dock and say, hey, come look at this. No, you were there. So if that video and audio is correct, it's a whole nother level of evidence that indicates culpability.
And just for clarity, what do you personally believe happened to Nolan Wells?
Well, what we're told is that he got on the boat with several white buddies in Mississippi, went to Fun Island, for lack of a better term, where everybody goes to this island to have fun on their boats. Overwhelmingly 90 to 100% white, 99.9 perhaps if you include Nolan. And his buddies say they left him there. He ends up dead. His buddies say we left him there and we told him to come, let's go. He refused to go. However, we had his phone, and you claim that everybody puts their phone away when they're on the island, and I don't believe that for 1 minute, that teenagers leave their phones for hours just because they're on the island. What's the relationship there? You don't want to drop it in the sand, or you don't the water, you can drop it in the water then. Nonetheless, that, and then of course, them not returning the phone to his mother time they arrived back, them not reporting him missing to his parents or their own parents. Then we have the young lady, Katie, who he allegedly stayed back to be with. Her sister says that they weren't spending a lot of time with Nolan, and that they also left without Nolan, meaning they had seen Nolan go somewhere when they were leaving. Did y'all just shake, hug, and walk away, and then someone saw him and said, hey, let's get with him because he kissing and hugging on that white woman and we don't play that and don't want to play that? Or is it, as I think it is, that they had something to do with his drowning, and they've come up with a variety of alibis that don't make sense. And so I believe it has something to do with his drowning, or certainly some knowledge of it. They have knowledge of it at the very least.
Judge Mathis, another great interview, very insightful. Definitely gotta bring you back, man, to keep us updated on this case. Before we end the interview, let the people know where they can find you and tell people about your podcast.
Certainly. Y'all make sure you check me out on Judge Mathis Instagram. We have some fun stuff and we have some serious stuff on there. And then, of course, Mathis Family Talks, a podcast on any of your podcast platforms and on YouTube, where me and my whole family talk about societal issues, things that affect other families from every level of society, socioeconomically. We have fun talking about our lives, cracking on each other's lives. You'll learn some of our family business that's funny, serious, and otherwise. So check us out, but continue to watch Art, because I'm going to be on the Art of the Dialogue every time I hear about a police killing. And we got one that we just saw happen that I'm going to come back and talk about. And that's in Madison, Wisconsin, where the police killed a young man, Reese, who was laying on his side. 3 police officers standing over him, holding him down, yet one walks up and shoots him 3 times in the back or on his side. We're going to talk about that next. In the meantime, let's keep our eyes on Nolan Wells and let's keep the pressure on. Thank you, man.
Instead is for both pathologists to sit with each other's notes, photographs and observations, and for toxicology to come back. And here is the line that reframes everything. Mitchell has said that if the finding is drowning, the question is still open, because drowning does not tell you whether Nolan was conscious when he entered the water, or whether he entered it by choice. On the question of alcohol, his friend Warren Hudson has said publicly that most of the group, Nolan included, were drinking that day, while maintaining that Nolan appeared completely fine. Crump has deferred to toxicology, rather than the recording. He ended where he began. Truth, regardless of who it implicates or clears. Justice, regardless of who it convicts or frees. Transparency, so the result can be trusted at all.